Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you for the opportunity. And I'm also very humbled to be on the same platform as some of the leading business leaders across Thailand and some of the CEOs. So very humble today.
There are so many issues concerning AstraZeneca. Why were you so quiet this whole time?
In terms of, I wouldn't frame it as issues. I think there was a lot of media reporting around AstraZeneca over the last 6 to 8 months. And really, we've had one priority and one focus, and that's to make sure that everybody in Thailand gets vaccinated and we produce as many high quality and tolerable vaccines as possible. And that's been incredibly important for us as a company. So in terms of where our priority has lied, it's making sure that we communicate effectively, making sure that our supply chain is up and running and stable in the country. And now feels like a good time to come out and talk to the population of Thailand about what we're doing, how we're doing it, and also to get to know AstraZeneca a little bit better as a company, because we have operated in Thailand for over 40 years.
So let's start with the big picture, Kun James. When do you think, is it possible for us to go back to life before COVID, meaning no mask needed, no social distancing needed, or that's just impossible?
I think in terms of stepping back and looking at the bigger picture around COVID-19 and what the science has told us and the evolution of the disease has told us that, there's going to be a new normal with COVID-19, just like with many pandemics or diseases we've seen in the past, like influenza. COVID is going to become part of our society. The most important thing for all of us is that we try and vaccinate as many eligible people as possible to slow down the transmission, and most importantly, to reduce hospitalizations and severe disease. And what I'm really pleased to share is that from the 1.3 billion doses that we've been able to distribute globally to over 170 countries worldwide, this vaccine has saved hundreds of thousands of hospitalizations and tens of thousands of deaths. I think that's a really important point, that everybody gets vaccinated, and we see the data from, for example, Bangkok, showing us that now we see the vaccination rates for over 60s at risk above 90%. We clearly see the impact of vaccination on hospitalization and mortality. In terms of the future, it's very hard to predict what the future looks like. But I think in terms of social distancing, welcoming COVID as part of our daily lives, I think is something that we're all going to have to get used to.
Talking about vaccine, which is a very crucial factor in helping alleviate the situation. Now for Thailand, it seems somehow that AstraZeneca vaccine rollout has been quite slow and you don't actually deliver at a constant amount. Why is that?
So I think it's important to talk about the journey of the vaccine in Thailand and our partnerships that have made this a reality. Very early on, since April, when we struck the agreement with Oxford and AstraZeneca, we really wanted to make a vaccine available for the world. And a really important point is that we wanted to do that at no profit or loss. To make it, regardless of your income, regardless of geography, we really wanted to make this vaccine available. In order to do that, we had to use our in-house capabilities in terms of vaccine manufacturing, but we also had to build a global supply network of manufacturers. And to date, we have over 25 different contract manufacturing organizations that are working across the globe to deliver this vaccine. I remember to the day when we had our first interaction with Siam Cement Group, SCG, and Siam Bioscience, starting to understand the capability of the company and starting to look at how they could work with AstraZeneca to deliver this vaccine. I think it's a really important point that everybody understands that what we've managed to achieve in 9 months as a company would normally take decades, not just in terms of investigating the vaccine, but building the infrastructure of this level to deliver billions of doses is a massive achievement. And I have to say a huge thank you to all of our employees at AstraZeneca who have dedicated their lives over the last 12 to 15 months and able to do this. And also really to our partners here in Thailand. I have to say that the pandemic has impacted everybody across the country, but to see how hard the team at SBS have worked to to deliver this vaccine, giving up their weekends, segregating from their family. And SBS know the responsibility they have as a company to deliver this vaccine. And what I'm really pleased to share is that SBS, as a manufacturing organization, contracting with AstraZeneca, has delivered over 50 million doses so far to AstraZeneca. And year to date, AstraZeneca has delivered around 24 million doses to Thailand. So to answer your question, in terms of it takes time to build a supply chain. We've managed to do it from when we started the technology transfer in October last year to the first doses coming into the country in June this year. We made a public commitment that the first doses to be delivered in Thailand would come in June. We hit that public commitment. We delivered our first doses to support the mass vaccination rollout on the 7th of June. And then we have consistently delivered on a monthly basis. So we started off delivering around 5 to 6 million doses. And I'm very pleased to share that in September, we will have delivered 8 million doses to Thailand.
So now that production is up and running, if we go a little bit back, there are letters, I'm pretty sure you're aware of that, of the amount of delivery each month. The Thai government said you promised to deliver 10 million doses a month. No, it's 3 million, then you increase it to 6. What's the deal actually? How much of the vaccines do you actually promise to deliver to Thailand per month?
We wrote an open letter last month to the population, the people of Thailand, to talk about what we've done as a company, talk about the journey, and to talk about how many doses we would deliver on a monthly basis. From the very first moment that we signed the letter of intent between the Ministry of Public Health, SBS, and AstraZeneca, we always talked about this supply chain would be for Thailand, in Thailand, but also for the region. And that's a really important point because this supply chain was the last in our network to actually start. And this supply chain for Southeast Asia is the only dedicated direct to country supply as well. So it plays a fundamental part in terms of supplying vaccine for Thailand and the region. In this letter, we talked about our commitment that we would share around 30% monthly basis to Thailand, and the remainder would be exported to support our neighbors across the region, because the pandemic doesn't just happen in one country, it happens in many countries, and it's not something that we can fight alone. We have to fight it together. And I think it's a really important point, and people of Thailand should be proud the role that Thailand is playing to combat COVID-19 across the region. It's incredibly important. We stated in that letter that we would be delivering on average around 5 to 6 million doses per month, and we are delivering around 5 to 6 million doses per month. As I said in the letter, we would leave no stone unturned. Our absolute priority is making sure that we deliver for Thailand and as many people get vaccinated as possible. And in September, we would have delivered 8 million doses, and in the first week of October, we plan to deliver around 2.2 million doses to Thailand. So you can clearly see that from the letter that we sent, saying that we'd leave no stone unturned, we are increasing our productivity of supply, and we're delivering more doses to the people of Thailand.
Let's talk about quality of the vaccine then. Is the vaccine produced here in Thailand just the same as produced elsewhere, let's say in the UK or in European countries?
I'm very glad you've asked that question because it's a question we get asked a lot, and it's something that's been reported in the media quite frequently here in Thailand. I have to say there is no more important priority to AstraZeneca than the safety to our patients and the quality of our medicines. What we can state is that the vaccine manufactured in any of our contract manufacturing facilities, those 25 that we've set up across the globe, they have to meet the same stringent quality criteria in every single one of those facilities. And we complete over 60 tests. And if you think about how the vaccine is made, there's two stages very simply. You produce the drug substance and then you produce the drug product. Actually, if you take the 120 days it takes to produce the vaccine, 60 days of that, nearly half of that life cycle is testing. And we test it in the US, we test it in the UK, and it's tested in the laboratories here in Thailand. So it's a really important point that everybody can trust the quality of the vaccine. AstraZeneca would not release the vaccine unless it was the same quality. And sometimes that can lead to delays in giving the vaccine over to the Department of Disease Control because it takes time, thousands of pages of documentation to review the quality and the results of those tests. But everybody should have the confidence in the quality of the product remains the same no matter if it's made in the UK or if it's made in Thailand. And one thing I would really like to share to everybody is that the Siam Bioscience facility in the last 2 weeks has gained approval from a stringent regulatory authority in the Australian TGA. And we're underway in terms of approval for the WHO, and we expect to receive an announcement very soon from the WHO around approval of the SBS facility.
I was about to ask you that if quality is just of the high standard as in the UK or elsewhere, then how come the WHO doesn't approve AstraZeneca produced here in Thailand, or even the UK doesn't list AstraZeneca produced in Thailand as an approved vaccine?
And again, it comes back to priorities, and the priorities that we set as the company here in Thailand is to make sure that we build the supply chain, we build the network, and we start delivering the vaccine to the population of Thailand. Now that is up and running and we're in a good position in terms of delivery, our focus has changed to making sure that we get the right regulatory approvals. And regulatory approvals are not something that happen quickly. It's a complex process and it requires documentation and evidence that AstraZeneca has to submit to the regulators. So we've been really pleased to partner with the Australian TGA authority to recognise SBS as a facility under a stringent regulatory authority. And I think that's a really important point for Thailand moving forward beyond COVID-19, that a multinational company has built a supply chain in Thailand. It's been recognised and approved by a stringent regulatory authority that should give many companies, multinational companies, confidence in the talent, the ability of Thailand as a country and good investment opportunities to the future.
What about the UK? The UK doesn't approve AstraZeneca produced in Thailand for people who get vaccinated to get into the UK.
So I'm aware of the guidance from the UK, and it's not just about the vaccine. There's more important parts. So when you look at, for example, countries like Taiwan or Malaysia, they are included in the UK's guidance and recognised. And obviously SBS is supplying these countries in terms of the vaccine. So when you talk about they don't recognise the vaccine, it's more than just a vaccine. It's about the vaccination passport, the vaccine itself. But I know that both governments are working together to make sure that we do get recognised as a vaccine from Thailand in the UK.
Is your company doing anything about this as well?
I mean, our job is really about regulatory approvals. So our job has been to partner with the Australian TGA. Our job is to submit to the WHO for an emergency use label for the facility. And that's really our main task in terms of making sure that we've got the right approvals. So, I mean, here in Thailand, our job is about manufacturing the vaccine and making sure that we distribute the vaccine here in Thailand. And Thailand is recognized in terms of the Australian TGA and the WHO. So in terms of the UK authority, the MHRA, that's something that both Thailand government, both the Ministry of Public Health and the Department of Disease Control will have to work together in collaboration to make sure that that's recognized.
As far as AstraZeneca's study is concerned, how safe is it for mix and match vaccines, the cocktail, like right now in Thailand? How safe is that?
So we're aware of the data that's emerging and the vaccine strategies. I mean, to start with, AstraZeneca's job is to produce, a safe and effective vaccine. In terms of how the vaccine is implemented, that's very much a decision for the Department of Disease Control, the Ministry of Public Health, and the country itself as what's the right thing to do in partnership with the academics in the country. I think it's something that AstraZeneca is recognising, and pleased to say that we are in conversations with the Department of Disease Control about making sure that moving forward that we can measure the effectiveness and tolerability of the vaccine in whatever strategy the Department of Disease Control chooses to interact. In terms of our company, AstraZeneca, we can only talk about what's licensed for us, and that's 2 doses of AstraZeneca vaccine. And from the latest evidence we see from Public Health England, we show that AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine is around 92% effective against the Delta variant after 2 shots. So again, that should give everybody confidence in the efficacy and tolerability of the vaccine.
Is it true that there's a formula change to AstraZeneca vaccine in order to prevent blood clots?
So again, I mean, when we talk about how widely used the vaccine has been, over 1.3 billion doses so far to over 170 countries, what we see is that the vaccine is very effective and very tolerable. The vaccine AstraZeneca COVID-19 will continue to produce this vaccine. It's our focus to deliver billions of doses of this vaccine, and we're very focused at the moment to make sure that we can deliver the full 61 million in 2021 to the Thai government. What all the data is showing us from both clinical trials that AstraZeneca has studied, but also real-world evidence of millions of patients that have been issued with the AstraZeneca vaccine, is that it's a very tolerable vaccine itself.
So what is AstraZeneca working on now? The next generation of vaccine?
So, I mean, there's obviously AstraZeneca, we have a core business, which is really our purpose in Thailand is about transforming outcomes for patients, and we operate across 3 main therapy areas: oncology, cardiovascular, renal, and metabolism, or CVRM, as we call it, and also respiratory, immunology, and infectious diseases, which is where our COVID-19 portfolio sits. So we have a big job to do in Thailand about making sure that patients get access to therapy, and also that we see innovation in the country, and we see AstraZeneca implementing innovation. And when I first came to the country, first took the role as country president for AstraZeneca here in Thailand, AstraZeneca wasn't particularly a well-known name, but one statistic that really struck me is that over 1 million patients in Thailand take AstraZeneca medicines today outside of the vaccine. If you look at the end of 2021, there's going to be over 40% of the population would have received an AstraZeneca medicine. So again, it shows the important role that we play in terms of care for patients, improving outcomes for patients, and the big job that we have to do in Thailand moving forward. If we take a disease like asthma, only around 30% of patients in Thailand are diagnosed with asthma. If we take CKD, or chronic kidney disease, there's about 8 million patients that are undiagnosed in Thailand. And take lung cancer. Lung cancer in Thailand is the 3rd most common cause of cancer, with over 24,000 cases per year. So our big responsibility for us is to making sure that patients get access to our medicine and we improve the outcomes. When we look at the vaccine, we do have a booster vaccine, a new generation vaccine in development called AZD2816. That's currently in phase 2, phase 3 clinical studies, and we expect to see the results of that later part of this year. It's basically the same viral vector, the same platform, but it's slightly tweaked spike protein to be more in tune with the beta variant.
Since you're from the UK and then you have been in the UK before this and then coming to Thailand, what are the situations like in Thailand compared to the UK? Because we have similar population size and we both use AstraZeneca as the main vaccine.
Yeah, so similar countries in many ways in terms of the population. A key point is that to everybody in the UK and everybody in Thailand, you have free care at entry into hospital. So free point of care, which both countries operate. In terms of the pandemic itself, I think lots of similarities between the 2 countries, and I've lived in both pandemics, both in the UK and in Thailand. And in terms of the vaccination strategy, very similar in terms of the way you start with patients at risk, in terms of the age and risk factors, and gradually move down and expand, and also in terms of the platforms and vaccines that have been utilized. Again, I can't comment hugely around the strategies for governments choose, because that's the role of Department of Disease Control and the governments themselves. But, both countries have very many similarities.
And do you see both as improving the situation?
Yeah, I think you look at where vaccines have been implemented, all technologies of vaccines, you see a clear cause and effect. So the more people that are vaccinated, you see a clear drop in severe hospitalizations and mortality. So again, it's a really encouraging point for everybody to make sure that if you're eligible to receive the vaccine, because it clearly has both benefits for the individual, but also for the population as well.
What's the next chapter for AstraZeneca in Thailand?
Yeah, really excited about our future priorities. I mean, let's get it straight. Our number one priority is to make sure we deliver our commitments to Thailand in terms of the vaccine in 2021. And we won't rest until everybody has received their dose in the country. In terms of the future, I talked about we have a big role to transform outcomes across our core disease areas. But really importantly, and to the theme of the show, it's about, I think Thailand has all of the ingredients to become a biotechnology innovation hub in the region. If you think about its location, if you think about the quality of academic institutions in the country and the data that's available here, I think what we need to do is work between public and private partnerships to really drive innovation in the country. For example, AstraZeneca sees Thailand as a clinical center of excellence for our oncology clinical studies. We have over 45 studies running here. So Thailand has proved that not only can it manufacture medicines, it can effectively measure the effectiveness of our products. The key missing link really is drug development. And I think that is where industry, public, private, and academic institutions in Thailand could work together. And we would love, as part of the wider industry as well, to play a really pivotal role to help Thailand develop its medical innovation status.
So thank you so much for your time today คุณ James. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณ
Thank you very
ค่ะ
much. ขอบคุณครับ